The first time she said she was finding herself, she didn't look at me when she said it. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting her earrings like the reflection mattered more than my reaction. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful, like she was announcing a yoga retreat or a long walk she'd been meaning to take. "I just need space," she said. "Time to clear my head." Those words hit me harder than shouting ever could. Because space is vague. Space can mean anything. Space can hide everything. I nodded anyway. I always did. "Okay," I said, even though my chest tightened. "Take whatever time you need." She smiled faintly, relieved, and kissed my cheek. Her lips lingered half a second too short. That was how it started. First it looked harmless. Long walks alone. Coffee shop, she said, helped her think. Nights where she came home quieter, distant but calm, like someone who just returned from somewhere peaceful. But the house felt emptier when she was there. Conversations turned shallow. Our evenings became quiet rituals of separate screens and forced smiles. When I reached for her in bed, she stiffened slightly, then relaxed like she was tolerating it. I told myself this was normal. People change. Marriages go through seasons. Not everything needs a diagnosis. Still, something felt off. Not loud. Not obvious. Just wrong. One night, she came home later than usual. Close to midnight. She smelled different. Not perfume exactly, just unfamiliar. Like a room I'd never been in. "Everything okay?" I asked from the couch. She kicked off her shoes. "Yeah. Just needed more time." "With yourself." She paused. A beat too long. "Yeah." I let it go. The lie didn't announce itself. It didn't scream. It waited. A week later, I was paying bills at the kitchen table when her phone buzzed. She was in the shower. Steam curled under the bathroom door, the sound of water steady and loud. The screen lit up with a notification from a rideshare app. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something about the timing stuck in my head. Midnight rides. Long thinking sessions. My hand hovered near the phone. Guilt already creeping in. I hated the idea of checking. Hated what it said about me. About us. But trust doesn't erase curiosity when doubt has already taken root. Picked it up. The receipt was simple. A pickup location near our house. A drop-off address across town. An apartment complex. Not a park. Not a cafe. Not a place you go to find yourself. I stared at the address until the numbers blurred. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, hair dripping onto her shoulders. She froze when she saw the phone in my hand. "Why are you holding that?" she asked too quickly. I set it down on the table face up. "Where did you go last night?" Her eyes flicked to the screen. Then away. "I told you. I needed time alone. That address doesn't look like alone." Her shoulders tensed. "You went through my phone?" "I saw a receipt," I said quietly. "I didn't dig. It showed up." She crossed her arms like armor. "You don't trust me." "I'm trying to," I said. "But I need help." Silence stretched between us. Thick. Heavy. "It's a friend's place," she said finally. "What friend?" She hesitated. "Someone from work." A name didn't come. I nodded slowly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd react like this." "Like what?" I asked. Concerned. She sighed, frustrated. "Like I'm doing something wrong when I'm just trying to figure out who I am." Her words landed, but they didn't erase the image burned into my mind. An apartment across town. A midnight ride. A story full of gaps. That night, she slept turned away from me. I lay awake listening to her breathing, wondering when exactly we became strangers sharing a bed. Over the next few days, I paid closer attention. Not obsessively, just honestly. Her phone never left her side. She smiled at messages and hid the screen. She showered longer, dressed better, left earlier, came home later. When I asked how her day was, her answers stayed vague. When I talked about mine, her eyes drifted. I wasn't angry yet. I was scared. There's a particular kind of fear that comes from watching someone you love slowly detach, thread by thread, while you stand there pretending not to notice. One evening, she forgot to log out of the shared tablet. Her email was open. I wasn't looking for anything. I swear I wasn't. But there it was. Another rideshare receipt. Same address. Different day. My hand shook as I scrolled. 3 rides. 4. Always late. Always there. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might climb out of my chest. When she came home that night, I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse. I just watched her. She hummed softly while putting her keys down. Looked lighter. Happier. That hurt more than any proof. Did you find anything? I asked quietly. She smiled. I think I'm starting to. I swallowed. Where? She shrugged. In myself. I nodded even as something inside me cracked. Later, when she was asleep, I looked up the address. It belonged to a man. Public profile. Same workplace. Same department. Same smile I'd seen reflected on her face lately. I sat there in the dark, phone glowing, heartbreaking in slow motion. This wasn't a monster story. There was no villain twirling a mustache. Just two flawed people drifting apart, and one of them choosing an easier connection instead of a harder conversation. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was realizing how long I'd been standing in the quiet, waiting for her to come back to me, while she'd already gone somewhere else. And suddenly, finding herself didn't sound like a journey. It sounded like goodbye. I didn't confront her right away. Not because I was weak, but because I needed to understand what I was standing on before I let the ground shift beneath me. Once you say the words out loud, there's no going back. No unringing the bell. No pretending the house hasn't already started to crack. So I watched. I noticed how she laughed more easily now, how she hummed while making coffee, how she lingered in the mirror longer than she ever had before. I noticed how her sadness around me seemed replaced by a lightness she didn't bother hiding anymore. And I wondered how long she'd been carrying that light without me. One night, she came home later than usual. Almost 2 in the morning. I was sitting in the dark living room, not to scare her, but because sleep had stopped being an option. She jumped when she saw me. You scared me. I've been doing that a lot lately, I said. She sighed, tired. I told you I need space. I know, I said. But I need honesty. She dropped her bag and rubbed her face. Why are you doing this? Because I know where you've been, I said quietly. Her hands stilled. What do you mean? The rideshare receipts. The address. I looked it up. Her eyes closed. Not in anger. In resignation. It's not that simple, she whispered. It never is, I said. But it's never this complicated either. She sat down slowly like her legs had suddenly lost strength. I didn't plan this. I sat across from her, keeping space between us. Then tell me what you did plan. She stared at the floor. I planned to feel seen. I planned to feel heard. I planned to feel like someone wanted to know me again. The words stung because they weren't cruel. They were honest. And I didn't? I asked. You did, she said quickly. Just not anymore. We stopped talking about us. Everything became routines. Schedules. Exhaustion. I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding ungrateful. So you found someone who listened. She nodded. Tears slid down her cheeks, quiet and steady. At first it was just conversations. Long talks after work. He asked questions. He remembered things. And then, I asked though I already knew. And then I told myself it wasn't cheating because it felt emotional before it felt physical, she said. I lied to myself. I lied to you. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. My chest felt hollow, like something essential had been removed without anesthesia. How long? I asked. 3 months. 3 months of late nights. Of space. Of silence. And the ride shares? I didn't want to drive, she said. I didn't want the guilt to follow me home. I laughed softly, bitterly. It did anyway. She looked up at me then. I never meant to hurt you. I know, I said. And I meant it. But intent doesn't erase impact. She nodded, wiping her face. I don't know how to fix this. I stood up, not in anger, but because sitting felt unbearable. I don't know if it can be fixed. Her breath hitched. So that's it. I walked to the window, watching headlights pass in the distance. I don't know. I need to figure out who I am in all this. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped listening to myself too. She stood and came closer, stopping a few steps away. I'm willing to end it. To try. To go to counseling. I turned to face her. She looked smaller now. Not guilty in a dramatic way. Just human. Flawed. Afraid. I believe you, I said. But belief isn't the same as trust. Silence fell again. Different this time. Heavier. Final. The next few days passed in slow motion. We spoke gently. Carefully. Like touching bruises. I slept in the guest room. She cried quietly at night, thinking I couldn't hear. I could. One morning I packed a small bag. Not everything. Just enough. I need time, I told her. Not to punish you. To understand myself. She nodded, eyes red. I understand. At the door she reached out and stopped herself. I wish I'd talked to you sooner. So do I said. I stayed with a friend for a while. Took long walks. Sat with the pain instead of running from it. I realized how much of myself I'd given to keeping things smooth, easy, unspoken. Love doesn't die from arguments. It dies from silence. Weeks later we talked again. Not about getting back together. About what we learned. She told me she ended it. That she was working on herself. I told her I was learning how to listen to my own needs instead of burying them. We didn't promise anything. And strangely, that honesty felt like the first real thing we'd shared in a long time. The lesson didn't come wrapped in triumph or closure. It came quietly. Pay attention when love starts whispering instead of speaking. Say the hard things before they turn into secrets. And never lose yourself trying to hold someone else together. Because finding yourself should never require losing someone who loves you. And sometimes walking away isn't failure. It's the beginning of self-respect.